What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here live. The 2022 NFL season is officially over. It is done with. Super Bowl 57 is behind us. That means that we must look forward. We must get excited and we must start predicting the future, because that's what we do here on the BLV. Let's rank every NFL team from the worst to the best, divided into tiers that I have created. We are going to discuss all 32 NFL teams before there are any free agency moves, any trades, any draft picks. I'm just going to give you my thoughts right off the top of the noggin, entering the offseason and entering the beginning of the 2023 NFL season. I hope you're excited. I'm excited. And if you are excited for this video, make sure to Gronk spike that like button. If you would also like to see more tier rankings this offseason, let me know what you would like to see. And also, let me know your personal favorite ideas for videos in the comments section below. Okay. Hello, everybody live in the chat. Let's waste no more time. Let's get to it. Let's have some fun, all right? The best of the best. The second tier. They're pretty good. Maybe they could make some noise. The average. You're not a complete, garbage team. And then basically you suck, okay? So that's what we're going to do. Let's begin with the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts are, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the worst football teams in the NFL. They do not have a quarterback. Now, that being said, they have a new coach. His name is Steichen. We don't know who the defensive coordinator will be. I don't believe they have announced the defensive coordinator quite yet. They do have some pieces on offense. Of course, the running back's pretty good. Jonathan Taylor. Michael Pittman Jr. is a beast. I do like him. I do like some of the supporting pieces there in Indianapolis. The offensive line, of course, built off of Quentin Nelson. Defensively, they've got some pretty good players. Darius Leonard should be healthy this year. And you got DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye. So they've got some talented players. They're not without talent, but they will likely be having a rookie quarterback. And unless that rookie quarterback is superb, I don't see him really being that good this year. I could see them winning 5 to 7 games at best. Honestly, I think they're in for a rebuild. So I'm going to put the Colts in the you stink category. I honestly don't even think they're that interesting. So I'm not going to put them in intriguing mess. Next, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville has Trevor Lawrence. Some people call him the Prince. He arguably has the best hair at this position in the NFL, the quarterback position. Jacksonville does have a pretty decent offensive line, although they could always use some upgrades. The running back position with Travis Etienne is pretty awesome. Wide receivers are solid, but going to get an upgrade with Calvin Ridley, so they don't really need to look to add there. They just need to look to re-sign Evan Ingram, most likely at tight end, who's basically a receiver anyways. And Doug Peterson's done a great job crafting that offense. So the biggest thing for me is looking for that offense to gain more chemistry together. That's a big thing for me moving forward. So the offense should be even better next year. Trevor Lawrence should have more confidence. And then defensively, they've got a lot of young players. I think they can get better. I'm not exactly sold on the scheme or the coordinator, so that could definitely be one of their weaknesses entering next year. They could add to their secondary and their pass defense in general, but they've got some good athletes. I do think they could add, another pass rusher, maybe somebody that can rotate in there and get some extra pressure against these AFC quarterbacks. But Jacksonville should be a pretty good team, and they had a pretty good season this year. Not an unexpected breakout, a pretty, reasonable breakout with 9 wins. I could see them getting to 10 plus this next season and being a pretty darn good team. I'm not sure I'm willing to put them into the favorite category, but I definitely think they're a dark horse / contender type team. I think I'm going to put them... Man, do I want to put them in the contender or the dark horse? Like, I still feel like they could make some big time moves. I still feel like their roster is a couple pieces away. I'm going to put them in the dark horse because I still feel like they're not quite on that next tier of teams that people are going to consider to be Super Bowl. I could see a couple people picking them to go to the Super Bowl, but I don't think it's going to be overwhelming. I think there's going to be a very silent crowd that thinks they could get there. The Tennessee Titans are next, and as much as I like Mike Vrabel, I do believe the Titans have seen better days. I feel like their roster has taken a bit of a hit in recent seasons. Age offensively has hit them. Offensive line needs a lot of work. The quarterback position could be in for a revamp, although I would keep Ryan Tannehill. There's been some noise about moving off of him. I would keep him personally. I think like he's an average quarterback and he can play above average in the right situation. Wide receiver can only get better, honestly, and I do think Treylon Burks will get better. I would add another player if they could somehow, some way, maybe draft another receiver there. The defense, I do feel, should be better than last year. They were nasty against the run. I believe they were number 1 or number 2 in that department, but they'll get Harold Landry back, and their corners hopefully are healthier. So I could see Tennessee finishing second in that division just because of the coaching and the defense. So I see them as a mid team in my opinion. Then we have the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are super interesting. I do feel like they have more talent than an average team typically, but they were such a mess last year that it's hard for me to see them getting a total upgrade from what they were a year ago. Like, Sean Payton is going to have to work his absolute magic for them to be something special this year. Russell Wilson was a disaster last year. He was nowhere close to prime Russell Wilson. The offensive line was a bit overrated. The run game without Javonte Williams was not good. The receivers overrated. Jerry Jeudy, maybe they get more out of him this year, but Cortland Sutton just looks slow to me. They missed Tim Patrick last year, and Noah Fant for that matter. Tight end couldn't really get it going. And then the defensive side of the football was pretty good, but I mean, not great. I feel like their pass defense was pretty solid overall, but they are moving on from Evero, and they're looking for a new defensive coordinator. We'll see who that will be. They've got a couple pieces up front, a couple pieces in the back end, and I do think they can be good again on defense. I just don't know, man. To me, they're an intriguing mess because they were such a mess last year. They really were the definition of a mess, but they have a lot of intrigue. They've got my interest. Like, I'm intrigued to see what they do this offseason, how Sean Payton is going to fix this team up and work his magic on Russell Wilson. Next, we've got the Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are without a doubt a favorite. Let's not waste any time with them. Now, in terms of the Chiefs, I do believe they should be the team favored to win the Super Bowl, but it is next level difficult to go back-to-back in this NFL. We have not seen a back-to-back champion since 2004. Could the Chiefs be the team to do it? Maybe. If there was any team built to do it, it might be them with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, all the pieces, Chris Jones coming back next year, you would assume. I do think they need to look to still improve wide receiver unless they get a significant jump out of Kadarius Toney. They need to look to retain Orlando Brown or maybe try to keep some sort of tackle. Their tackle position is going to be interesting. Like, do they keep Orlando Brown? Do they release him? Like, what happens? Does he go somewhere else? That's interesting. Pacheco will be their running back. Defensively is really where I see a lot of potential for them. Like, guys like Brian Cook, guys like Watson and McDuffie and Karlaftis will all be entering their second year after a fantastic draft. They could get even better. I would expect maybe one of them to sophomore slump, but most of the time those guys get better. And then you're talking about maybe just tweaking your depth on the defensive line, but I don't think the Chiefs are going to do a lot in this offseason. I think they're going to make some minor moves to try to keep them right there for that contention. They just got to stay healthy again. And that was really the biggest thing for them this year, was they stayed healthy. The Bengals didn't, the Bills didn't, they did. That was a big difference for them. So the Chiefs, I'm going with the favorite. Las Vegas Raiders are another team that I feel like super intriguing. Of course, from my perspective as a Josh McDaniels guy, I believe in Josh McDaniels. I think this team does need a little bit of a rebuild, though. I mean, they just don't have a lot of talent on defense. Their offensive line is kind of young and intriguing. I felt like they played a lot better than their reputation suggests last year. I thought they ran the ball really, really well with Josh Jacobs, who led the NFL in rushing. And Devontae Adams is still a beast. Darren Waller may be healthier this year. Hunter Renfrow, same thing, unless they trade those guys, which is also potentially there for them to do. But I think they really need to focus on the defense, and I think they really need to hone in on a quarterback. Who's that quarterback going to be? Is it going to be Aaron Rodgers? Is it going to be Jimmy Garoppolo? Is it going to be a rookie? I think it could be a rookie, but we'll see where they go. I mean, I could see it going either way. I think the Raiders, to me, are an intriguing mess. I don't think they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. I think they've got too many really good players like Max Crosby, Devontae Adams, Colton Miller to be a you-stink team. But I think they could be a you-stink team depending on what happens at quarterback. Because I could see them being like a flirt with the playoffs type team if they get the quarterback right. But I could also see them being a 4 or 5 win team if they don't get that position right. So that's kind of the tough thing with the Raiders. The Los Angeles Chargers are up next. The biggest move the Chargers have made already is switching their offensive coordinator from Joe Lombardi to Kellen Moore, which I do think will be good for them. I think Kellen Moore is certainly a little bit overrated by reputation across the NFL, but I definitely think he's better than Joe Lombardi. I mean, he did good things in Dallas, especially with Dak Prescott elevating that passing offense. I thought they always had a good amount of balance, and while I don't think that Kellen Moore is like a top-tier offensive play caller, designer, and, schemer, I feel like he is a mid-tier to closer to like second-tier type guy. So I think that's a huge upgrade over Mr. Lombardi there, who is an absolute disaster in his short passing game expertise, where he absolutely ruined Matthew Stafford. And he pretty much has ruined Justin Herbert too. I mean, back in Detroit, he did the same thing with Stafford. Two guys that were pocket passers, great athletes with great arms. He made them both, Alex Smith, essentially. So seeing Kellen Moore potentially get Justin Herbert throwing the ball down the field to Mike Williams and maybe Keenan Allen, maybe not Keenan Allen, that will be interesting. Austin Eckler, Josh Palmer, who had a good season this year, Gerald Everett, who had a good season this year. I think they could still add to the offensive line, specifically the depth and the right tackle position. I also believe that defensively, they need to work on their run defense, and go from there. We'll see what they do with J.C. Jackson. They could maybe move off him after basically not seeing him in his first year, but not being satisfied with what he gave them. But Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack will be there. And then on top of that, you have Asante Samuel Jr., Derwin James, and a very solid secondary. So the Chargers still have a lot of talent on their roster. It's a matter of their coaching staff getting it right. I'm going to say that they're a dark horse team. I don't quite believe in them to be a contender or a favorite. It's the Chargers. At this point, I've almost given up my hope on this team after that collapse in the playoffs, and currently I'm just not satisfied with what Brandon Staley has brought to this franchise. So I'm going to go with the dark horse. They're certainly going to be in the conversation for the playoffs with Justin Herbert alone, but I can't be more sold than that on that team. The Dallas Cowboys are next, and Dallas Cowboys for me are a contender. I think you could argue they may be a favorite depending on what they do in the offseason. I think this is a team that I wouldn't be shocked if I were picking them to win the NFC in August. I really would not be, but it highly depends on what they do in the offseason. As I've said numerous seasons in a row when it comes to Dallas, because every year with Dallas, it seems like they're a couple moves away from putting themselves over the top, but they simply don't do it. Like, one year, they take a step forward. One year, they take a step back. One year, they take a step forward. One year, they take a step back. It just feels like they're playing this game of, it's inconsistency for me. And Mike McCarthy has brought a little bit of a stabilization to this team. Dan Quinn staying is huge. I will be very much interested to see if they upgraded or downgraded at offensive play caller with Kellen Moore leaving. But Dak Prescott is a solid quarterback. I don't think you can say he's special or a great quarterback, but he's good, especially for this conference. You know, there's not many quarterbacks you would rather have over Dak Prescott in this conference, the NFC. The offensive line is one of the best offensive lines in the NFC. Tyron Smith hopefully can still play at that high level and be healthy along with Zach Martin. And then running back Tony Pollard, you'll have to see him get more of the ball this next season. Zeke, I don't know what's going on with him, but we'll see. I think they could add another perimeter receiver to help CeeDee Lamb out. Maybe Michael Gallup's better, a year removed from the injury. We'll see what happens at wide receiver, but I think they could upgrade there. Defensively, I think they'll have one of the best defenses in the league once again. They've got a young cornerback group that's really promising. Safeties are solid. I think they've got a lot of role players that are pretty strong. The defensive line and the pass rush is really good. So I think Dallas has the defense, the offense, the roster, and now a pretty good coaching staff, especially defensively, to have some faith in this team. More faith than I've had in recent years. So Dallas is a contender. The New York G-Men. Now, the G-Men are a team that I feel like are going to be one of those teams that a lot of people pick to regress this season in 2023 because of how much they overachieved. When you look at how much they overachieved, it's crazy considering the talent they have on this roster. Can Daniel Jones play as well or better in his second year? The one thing I will say is that the Giants kept all of their coaches. They didn't lose their offensive coordinator. They didn't lose their defensive coordinator. And of course, they still have that awesome head coach who won Coach of the Year, Brian Daboll. That is essential to their next year's success. Huge, huge, huge win for them. Huge dub. Offensive line could still use a lot of work. They need to get better out of Evan Neal, their top pick from this year. I think they will. Sometimes tackles take a year or two to develop. We saw that with Andrew Thomas. They couldn't improve the interior, though, a little bit. I think they need to improve receiver. They need to get a number one target in there, whether that's DeAndre Hopkins or I don't know who they're going to look at, but they could be a team that takes a look at a D-Hop to help Daniel Jones out. Saquon's going to be there, I would think, defensively. I think they'll only improve a year or two under Wink Martindale. He can get even more creative and more fancy with what he does with guys that have familiarity with his system. And they'll improve. Kayvon Thibodeau could improve. You know, I think Dexter Lawrence is in his prime. You got Adoree Jackson and Xavier McKinney. They need to get better at linebacker for sure. But I think this team is going to improve from a talent perspective. The question is, will they improve from a record perspective? And that thing, I don't know. I think they're honestly a mid team. I could be totally wrong about this because they could just completely overachieve once again. But right now, I have to say they're an average team. I just don't think they'll be as lucky and fortunate when it comes to the schedule and the cupcakes that they were facing this year. I think it's going to be a tougher path for them to get back to where they were last year. So I'm going to put them in the mid category for now. The Philadelphia Eagles just were in the Super Bowl, and many would have argued that they have the best roster in the NFL last year. The question is, will they have it this year? They're going to be potentially losing some big names. Javon Hargrave's a free agent. Fletcher Cox is a free agent. Jason Kelsey's contemplating retirement, although because he lost the Super Bowl, I'd expect him to come back after how well he played. Especially, I thought he played great in the Super Bowl too. I think that the Philadelphia Eagles are in prime position to once again be a very good team with Jalen Hurts and, you know, all the roster talent they still have, especially on offense. They won't really be losing much on offense. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are there. Devontae Smith could take another step next year and be like a really great receiver. Dallas Goedert's awesome. Like, their offense is going to be really good. The question is, the offensive coordinator. Shane Steichen has left to the Colts. Who do they replace him with? Who do they replace the defensive coordinator with? Although I think that's a good thing for them personally. They could get more aggressive and better and more versatile on defense. But they're getting older on defense, so that's definitely a question. But they still got tons of talent. So for me, I'm going to put the Eagles not in the favorite category, but in the contender category just because of the pieces they've lost and could lose. They lost their OC, they lost their DC, and they also could be losing some key veterans to this roster. So I'm going to put them in the contender position for me. The Buffalo Bills are next. I'm not exactly sure where the Buffalo Bills land in terms of potential turnover for this roster, in terms of who may be leaving, but I do know that Micah Hyde and Von Miller are probably going to be back this year after being lost for the season last year. The question is, they're both older. Will they come back the same players that they were? That is highly questionable. I don't know. But I do think the Buffalo Bills are in a stage where they must be thinking they are losing time, like they're racing against the clock. And I think once again, the Bills will be going all in this year. Josh Allen, I think, was definitely hurt last year at the end of the year, and that hurt the Bills. I also wasn't satisfied with what they were doing offensively from a play calling perspective all that much at the end of the year. I felt like they become too reliant on Josh Allen. There's definitely areas where they can improve from a run game standpoint, from a balance standpoint. And I do think it was a good thing that they got embarrassed against the Bengals, because I think they're going to be able to put forth a game plan this offseason that really helps them improve from a roster and a weakness standpoint. Because sometimes when you get embarrassed, it forces change. And that could be a good thing for them. I do think they've got some young, talented players that could get better, like Elam or Rousseau on defense. But overall, this is one of the better rosters in the league still, I do think. I don't think they're overwhelming, but there's key spots that they need to get better. They definitely could improve at wide receiver 2. They definitely could improve on the offensive line, and they definitely could improve really with just adding a little bit more versatility to their defense, being able to play more man coverage, having another reliable pass rusher in the interior especially. So I think the Bills are once again a team that could be a favorite for a lot of people just because of Josh Allen, because he's that good when he's at his peak. But I do have more questions than I did last year, so I'm going to put them in the contender category for me personally. Then we've got the Washington Commanders, who we don't know who's going to be the quarterback, just like every other season for the last 30 years. In Washington, it's no different. We do not know who the quarterback is going to be. Now, that being said, this is probably an underrated roster. I think they've got a pretty talented defensive front. Their secondary is young. They've got a couple players that they can work with there. I'm not so sure that they should be running with Ron Rivera moving forward, but because of where their franchise is at and the state of their franchise and the ownership of their franchise, it's difficult to move off of Ron Rivera. I don't think he's a terrible coach by any means, but they might need to freshen up, especially, with him just being kind of mid over the last 5 years. And then offensively, they've got really good skill positions. I think a lot better than people think. Running back position, wide receiver position, tight end position. They've got all the pieces there. Offensive line could definitely improve. I think this team is mid once again, honestly, but they might be more so right now an intriguing mess just because they don't have a quarterback right now. So I'm kind of leaning towards intriguing mess. Once I know who the quarterback is going to be, I could maybe elevate them. And also the state of their team, like they could be sold at any second. So I have no idea what's going on with Washington, but I'm going to put them at the intriguing mess, as they pretty much always are every single season. The Chicago Bears are next. The Bears are definitely, as of right now, one of the worst teams in the NFL. But the question is, will they be one of the worst teams in the NFL this time next year? So I'm trying to balance what they are now with what I project for them. I think there's a lot of people that love Justin Fields, but I think there's a lot more questions about Justin Fields moving forward than people want to really think there are, just because he's never really proven himself as a passer in his seasons in the NFL. He's an excellent athlete. So will they remain, a Justin Fields team? if that's the case, they need to go all in on the six-back offense. That means going all in on the offensive line and going all in on that style of offense. It does feel like they have enough at wide receiver and tight end to get this done. If they play with Justin Fields as their quarterback and they become a run-heavy team and they go all in on the quarterback run game, then I think Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool, and Cole Kmet is enough for this team, honestly. I think there's people that want this team to get a receiver. I'd much rather them focus on the offensive line and focus on defense. I think their defense has some young pieces in the secondary, but they could definitely get a lot better on the defensive line. So those are the areas where they could really improve the most, but they've got a lot of cap space, they've got a lot of capital, and they could use that top pick and maneuver it. I don't know if they'll be able to trade it. We'll see. But I've still got the Bears at you stink just because there's a lot of ifs and buts about this team. I'm going to have to see them go through their plan this offseason. If they can operate effectively in the way and the manner that they should, which is add to the offensive line, add to the defense, then I might be able to move them up. But right now, they're still bad. Like, they're a bad team. You can't get around it. The Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are a team that everybody's going to be hyped about this year. That's not too unfamiliar for Detroit Lions fans. I mean, we've seen very much hyped up teams in their past and recent history. This year, though, feels a little bit different because it's mostly on the energy of younger players and this culture that's been very successful early in the life of Dan Campbell. I still stand by my take. That is, Dan Campbell is a coach that can improve you, but I'm not exactly sure he can put you over the top. I think the saving grace is that you retained your offensive coordinator. I think that was huge because I think he's one of the best, brightest young offensive play callers in the game and was a huge reason you were successful. I also felt like Aaron Glenn and the defense really improved in the later half of the season, and they could show some improvement next year as well. If I'm the Lions, I think I'm pretty much set offensively. I don't think you've got to do a heck of a ton there. You've got Amon-Ra. You've got Jamison Williams, hopefully ready to explode. You've got your running backs. You've got your offensive line. Jared Goff is still there. Now, do you look to get that future at quarterback? Probably not right now, but that's an option for you. I think you're looking to defense. I think you're looking to really upgrade the talent of this defense because Hutchinson could be really good, and you've got some players up front that are intriguing, but I think you need to improve linebacker, safety, corner. I think you can improve all those positions, and I think that's what the Lions will be doing. I think there's still, this is an NFC that's ready to be taken advantage of, and the Lions, because of the offense and the way they play, they could definitely be one of those teams to take advantage. But I think you're fooling yourself if you think that this team is a contender. I think that they're more so a dark horse team. I think they're a team that can put together a nice 10 to 12 win season at the best. 12 wins would be absolute peak. But I do feel like 10, 11 wins would be very, very nice for the Lions. And I think that would be expected, okay? I think that would be expected. Like 9 to 11 wins, getting into the playoffs, maybe winning a playoff game would probably be where the Lions should be aiming for. Anything past that would be a bit much because I still think teams like Dallas, teams like the Eagles, we'll get to a couple more that potentially could be better than the Lions. But the Lions are a dark horse team that I think could make some noise, especially with how well their offense can play. So that's where I stand on the Lions. The Green Bay Packers are obviously super, super tough to rank because we don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be the quarterback. But I'm just looking at it on the surface. If I'm Aaron Rodgers, I don't think there's many places I could go that it would fit me better right now than the Packers. I think the Packers could be very much better than they were last year. Christian Watson entering his second year could really explode into a awesome receiver one. Romeo Doubs is a guy that's got a lot of potential as well. And then you've got a great running game, a very good offensive line, a play caller you're familiar with, and a good play caller in Matt LaFleur. I think he's a little bit overrated as a head coach, but as a play caller, he's good. And then defensively, it's a team with a lot of talent, and a team that I feel like they were average last year. I didn't feel like their defense was terrible last year by any means. I don't think it was great either. But if anything, it could get better with Rashawn Gary coming back. And there could be things that you tweak. You know, guys like the Georgia kids. It could get better. I was forgetting the names. Wyatt. Those guys could get better, you know. So I feel like the Packers are definitely talent-wise in that playoff conversation for the NFC. And they are a little bit being slept on right now, I feel, in this entire conversation about the NFC. I feel like the Packers, nobody's talking about them right now, but if they're able to keep Aaron Rodgers, this is a team that should make the playoffs next year. I'd be surprised if they didn't, so I'm going to put them in the dark horse conversation. The Minnesota Vikings are next. The move that I've loved so far for the Vikings is bringing in Brian Flores as the defensive coordinator. He is an awesome football coach. He spent one season as the linebacker coach with the Steelers, and I think he helped that position. But he was also a very good head coach for the Dolphins and a very good defensive coordinator for the New England Patriots. I think going to Minnesota is going to help them. From a mentality standpoint, he's very tough. He's all about physicality. He's about aggression. I think that's going to help the Vikings. But the question is, do they have the pieces to be able to improve? You know, I think that the front will improve. Like, their run defense will improve. I think they've got enough pieces there between Dalvin Tomlinson and Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter and Eric Kendricks. They've got enough pieces up front to be better on defense. The secondary needs a lot of work. They're slow, they're old, they play zone, and that's not really what Flores wants to do. He wants to play man. So they're going to have to shift their identity there. I do think it's interesting that Kevin O'Connell brought in a New England disciple, as Kevin O'Connell is a guy that obviously was drafted by New England, but kind of learned more football under the Rams. So I feel like Kevin O'Connell proved that he is a good play caller situationally and a pretty good coach and gets along with Kirk Cousins. Jefferson's a beast. Their offense is very good. They've got a really good left tackle. Dalvin Cook might be seeing the end of his prime here, but I think the Vikings are interesting. I mean, I don't think they're going to be a 12-win team like they were last year or a 13-win team like they were last year. I just don't think their record is going to be replicated because they were super fortunate and super lucky in a lot of their games. But I could see a case where they win like 9 or 10 games, but they're actually a better team going into the playoffs than they were this year. Like, I could really see that happening for them where they regress from a record standpoint, but they're actually a better team because their defense isn't a complete, like, garbage show. So I'm going to say the Vikings are like mid to dark horse range, and you could argue either way, but I'm going to say mid for now just because I believe the Lions and the Packers are in better position than they are next year. I really do. So I'm going to put them mid on like the borderline of dark horse. If their defense can add some speed and some youth, I'll move them up on my list. The Atlanta Falcons are next, and this team I see a lot of potential for, especially with Arthur Smith, who I really like as a coach, especially offensively, with the way that he calls the game. I think he believes in the run game, and their offensive line really blocks really well. This is a team that I didn't see get stopped in the run game all year. I don't think a single team stopped them running the ball. The problem is that their offense has no passing game because their quarterback sucks. Right? They don't have Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder is going to be the quarterback who I don't really believe in long term. I think he's pretty much a bridge quarterback with some upside to see what he is in year 2, but I don't really see much there. Marcus Mariota was just a bridge guy. Drake London seems to be very good and very talented. Kyle Pitts disappeared off the map last year. Obviously, Calvin Ridley's not coming back. They traded him. So their receiver position needs work. Defensively, they need a lot of work. I mean, they need a lot of players. They need a pass rush. They need corners. They need linebackers. They need everything pretty much. So this is a Falcons team that with one good offseason, because of the coaching they have, I could see them really surprising people. You know, the fact they won 6 or 7 games this past year was kind of a miracle. I still think, though, they're a bad, like, I think they're a bad team. Like, honestly, like, I think they're in this range here. Intriguing mess. You stink. I think Mariota was better than people thought. I don't think Ritter will be that good, so I'm going to put them in the you stink category. The Carolina Panthers are up next. The Carolina Panthers are the team in this division, the NFC South, that I see the most potential for in 2023. I think this is the most sound destination for Derek Carr. Like, if I'm Derek Carr, I'm trying to go to Carolina. Carolina has a very underrated offensive line. They have, and it's young too, like, the left tackle could only get better there. The running game is very solid. Frank Reich is a very good play caller, and I think suits the strengths of Derek Carr. And I might even be making an entire video about this, but I really think the Panthers should go all in on Derek Carr. Like, I think they should get Derek Carr because they can win this division with Derek Carr. DJ Moore's really good. And the defense is really fast and really good. Derek Brown, Brian Burns, J.C. Horn. I don't know what's going on with Shaq Thompson, but they've got some really nice pieces there. I think the Panthers are probably going to win this division if they get if they get an average quarterback. If they get an average quarterback, I think they're going to win this division. So I'm going to put them in the mid category. But I think mid is good enough to win this division next year. I really do. Next, we have the New Orleans Saints. We have no idea who the quarterback's going to be. They are another team that looked at Derek Carr. I feel like Derek Carr could go there, but it doesn't feel like he's going to go there. But I do feel like they're going to try to add a quarterback, a veteran, probably more likely than a rookie. So they're going to try to compete this year to win this division. The Saints still have a pretty darn good defense, although some of their pieces are getting older. Tyrann Mathieu's pretty old. Cameron Jordan's pretty old. Offensively, their offensive line is solid. Their wide receiver position, I don't know if Michael Thomas plans on playing football. I don't know what's going on there. Alvin Kamara is getting older. So this is a team that's kind of like should be starting to rebuild and move off of assets, but they're still desperately holding on to any sort of like hope that they can put something together. Like, that's what the Saints feel like to me. I think they've got the talent to discuss them as a mid team, but I think they're kind of more of a mess to me, honestly. I think they have an identity crisis. Like, they want to be competitive, but they're really just not there. Okay? So they're an intriguing mess for me. Thank you, Sideline Report. See you later, man. Thank you guys so far for tuning into this live stream. By the way, if you're enjoying what you're hearing, what you're seeing, and what you're viewing, don't forget to spike the like button. And if you're new, subscribe, man. NFL content like this all off-season long. Let me know as well, guys, your thoughts in the comments for future tier rankings. And if you're watching this live, please leave it in the comments after the video goes on YouTube, please. Thank you. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are next. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are another team like the Saints that I feel like this year they're in the Saints position where the Saints were last year. I feel like this is a team with enough talent to reasonably suggest that they could add a quarterback, refresh their coaching staff, and have another run at this division. And I don't think that's unreasonable for them to assume. But without Tom Brady, I don't think this organization will quite understand how much Tom Brady was carrying the team. I don't think a lot of fans understand that. Especially last year, it was pretty ugly to watch this team play. Now, I will assume that they'll get better coaching from their offense. It's hard to get worse, to be honest. And I do expect improvement from a luck injury standpoint because they were extremely unlucky last year. So I feel like Tampa Bay, they can improve in areas, but I just don't think it's going to be enough for them to kind of get over the loss of Tom Brady. So unless they were to somehow get Aaron Rodgers, I don't see this team winning this division with Todd Bowles as the head coach. I don't think he's a great head coach. I think he's a good defensive coordinator, like a above average defensive coordinator. I don't think he's a good head coach. I think this is an intriguing mess as well because they've got some talent like the Saints, but they're in an identity crisis. They don't have a quarterback. They could be a bad team. Like, don't get me wrong. They could be a you stink, and I wouldn't be surprised. If they go into the season with Blaine Gabbert, or they go in the season with Kyle Trask, which I highly, highly doubt. Like, I'm highly doubting that. They'll be the worst team in the NFL. But if they get like a Jimmy G type, somebody like that, they'll be a team that wins 6, 7, 8 games because they can put together enough defensively and they've got enough talent on offense where they can be competitive, but they're so mid, like it hurts. So that's why they're an intriguing mess. The Arizona Cardinals, I think the Arizona Cardinals might be the worst team in the NFL next year. They've got a coach that I have no faith in. They just hired a new coach, Jonathan Gannon from the Philadelphia Eagles. He reminds me so much of Matt Patricia. It hurts my soul. The quarterback is injured. He's not going to be playing next year. If Kyler Murray plays next year, I mean, the only thing he's going to be playing next year is Call of Duty. Let's be honest. The offensive line is old and it sucks. The running back position, overrated. Wide receivers, they're letting go of D-Hop. They got nothing. The defense really has no talent. I felt like Vance Joseph completely carried that defense. If Jonathan Gannon is going to bring the Philadelphia Eagles scheme that we just witnessed in the Super Bowl to this defense with no corners and no pass rush, J.J. Watt retired, this is going to be the worst team in the NFL. So I got the Arizona Cardinals in the you absolutely stink category. Miami Dolphins are next. Miami Dolphins are kind of like the Packers because we don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Is Tua going to be healthy enough to play? That is the assumption. But also the assumption from me, because I'm not an idiot, is that the Miami Dolphins are not going to have Tua for all 17 games because he can't hold. He just doesn't have the body to do it. I mean, the guy is going to get hurt at some point. So it's kind of balancing that. They better have a good backup entering next year. I don't think it's Skylar Thompson. I'm sorry. But I do really like bringing in Fangio. I think that's going to be nice for them. And McDaniel running the offense and being the head coach of the offense, and Fangio being the defensive coordinator, the head coach of the defense. I do think both those things are great. Both those things are great. They've got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. It doesn't get much better than that. I don't see Tyreek Hill slowing down next year. They still got some good players on offense. You know, maybe they could improve running back, but I don't think that's, offensive line. They could maybe improve the right side a little bit more, but that offense was really, really effective and really efficient with Tua at the helm. The one thing I will say is in year 2, I think defenses will catch on a little bit more than they did this year. There's a whole season to study their tape from last year and to study the weaknesses of Tua in this offense. So that's something to think about, but they're still going to be really good on offense if Tua is there. Defensively, I think they should only be improved. From a health standpoint in the secondary, they should be better. The pass rush should be really good. I think Bradley Chubb was a poor usage of assets. He did not play well. Christian Wilkins is a beast, though, and Jalen Phillips could be an explosive pass rusher for them next year. I think they should have a top 12 defense next year, and their offense should also be top 12, top 10, depending on the consistency of quarterback. So Miami I'm going to put them in dark horse because they have a lot of questions to answer, but they also have a lot of upside. So I'm going to put Miami in dark horse category. The Los Angeles Rams. They are another team to me that feels like a team that's going to be such a identity crisis type team. Matthew Stafford, I believe, is going to want to come back this year to play, which I would recommend, Matthew. I love you, man. You're one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time. I would retire, okay? I don't want to see you get hurt and absolutely, be in a wheelchair. I don't want to see that. But your back is broken. Give it a rest. You won your Super Bowl. Hang it up. That's my opinion. But hey, I'll love to see Matthew Stafford throwing the rock next year. I'm not sure how good he's going to be, though. I'm not sure if he's going to be nearly the guy that they got in the trade 2 years ago. The offensive line is absolutely horrific. I would expect Sean McVay to improve that, though, with some coaching and potentially adding some younger players to the mix. Defensively, Aaron Donald is coming back. For what reason, I don't know, but he is. They still got some talent on defense, and I do think they've got a really good coaching staff, really on both sides of the ball, but specifically defensively. McVay is still a good play caller, and I think they've brought in some good voices as well. Jalen Ramsey could be gone. I could see them letting him go. Cooper Kupp should be back and should be healthy and should be still elite. Allen Robinson, is he still going to be there? I don't know. He's a ghost. They've got talent. Cam Akers should have a good year. They've got talent, but they're old and they don't have depth. I wouldn't be shocked if this team made the playoffs, but they're also a team that I could see having another year that they're just not able to stay upright. Like, they're injured. They just don't have it anymore. Like, I could see that again for the Rams. I got a lot of respect for McVay, though. So I'm going to say they're a mid team because I think they've got enough good management. I think they're smart enough in the front office to evolve, to adapt. And I think if Stafford plays, I think he'll be okay. So I'm going to put them in the mid. I could see them being a team that is kind of feisty, maybe even a team that nobody wants to play come the end of the year because of some of the veterans they have, but just not consistent enough. They're an inconsistent team. The San Francisco 49ers are next. The 49ers, man, of course I love them. They're my number 2 team. I love Kyle Shanahan. I think he's, if not the best, the number 2 coach in the game right now. I think it's him or Andy Reid. Of course, Andy Reid has Patrick Mahomes, so that helps a little bit. But the thing with Kyle Shanahan is he has Trey Lance, or he has Brock Purdy. So, is Brock Purdy or Trey Lance the answer? I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think they're getting Tom Brady to come out of retirement. I don't think they're getting the Aaron Rodgers trade to happen. If that happened, oh boy, look out. If that happened, oh boy, I'm putting the Niners for the ring. I don't think that's going to happen, though. I will say I think Brock Purdy has something. I'm not a Trey Lance guy. I don't know if I'll ever be a Trey Lance guy. I don't think he can hit water if he fell out of a boat. I do think they'll have one of the best defenses in the league once again. Kyle Shanahan has proven to replace good coaches with good coaches. He's very good at that. A very talented evaluator of coaches. Their offense is stacked. Still got Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, pretty much all in their prime. Defensively, they'll have Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, Charvarius Ward leading the way, Hufanga, Fred Warner. They could add depth on the O-line, D-line, which would help. But I really feel like the Niners should be put in the contender tier just because of how talented the roster is at every place except for quarterback and how good the coach is. Everything else doesn't really matter, and especially in the NFC, they should make it back to the NFC Championship game. They should. Seattle Seahawks are next. The Seahawks. Tessa Seahawks. By the way, Tessa, during the Super Bowl, I had multiple Tessa sugar cookies. The Seattle Seahawks are next. Tessa Seahawks. Kevel Seahawks. Shout out to Beach Kev. The Seahawks, I actually am very, very intrigued with. They made the playoffs this year. They've got a lot of young pieces to work with. Peter Carroll has proven to be a good coach post Russell Wilson. I think their defense will improve with potentially adding some youth to the defensive line and some pass rushers to the defensive line. I think their secondary is very promising. Linebackers promising. Offensively, Metcalf's a monster. I love Kenneth Walker. Offensive line's a lot better than people think. Geno Smith was very good for them last year. I think the Seahawks are honestly, I think the Seahawks are a dark horse team. I think the Seahawks, if Geno Smith plays anywhere close to the way he played last year, I think they're going to improve. I think they're going to get better. I think they've got a lot of talented young players, and they're only going to get better. So I got Seattle as a dark horse team. I think they should make the playoffs again next year. I really do. The New England Patriots. This is what everybody has been waiting for. The best franchise in sports. The best franchise in the history of the NFL. The New England Patriots. Robert Kraft. Bill Belichick. Mac Attack Jones. I think this is a year where the Patriots rise. I think the offseason will be full of big moves by the New England Patriots. I think they'll be looking for a number one wide receiver. I think they will be adding to the offensive tackle position. And I do think Belichick is going to put a stamp on that defense. Why do I love the Patriots entering next year? They can't be worse from a coaching standpoint than they were this year, from an offensive coaching standpoint. The quarterback will be a lot better. I think Mac Jones is going to have his best season of his career. I think Mac Jones is going to have a very good year. I think the offensive line is going to be better. I think Stevenson's a beast. I think they got enough pieces already, but they're just going to add on top of it. And Bill O'Brien's going to bring maturity and creativity and flavor to an offense that lacked all of it last year. He's going to get the best out of Mac Jones. Defensively, I think they could be the best defense in the NFL next year. They've got a very good pass rush. Josh Uche could have 15 sacks next year. Matt Judon could also have 15 sacks next year. Christian Barmore is a very good player, and they've got lots of depth there. Dietrich Wise being a very good player as well. They do need to improve linebacker. Athleticism, speed at linebacker would be nice, but I felt like Bentley and some of those players played pretty well. Secondary might lose Devin McCourty, the leader, the legend, but they do have some young players, Marcus Jones and also Jack Jones, who could explode in year 2. Kyle Duggar's already a premier safety in this league. Jalen Mills will be back and healthy. Adrian Phillips. They've got lots of good players on that defense. They're going to be a very, very good defense. So I think the combination of much improved offense, probably improved roster because they've got a lot of cap space and draft capital, and a very good defense. Bill Belichick also angry. I think the Patriots are going to be back in the playoffs, so I'm going to put the Patriots in the dark horse category. Next, we've got the New York Jets. The Jets, who could I compare them to? I feel like the Jets are kind of like the AFC's version of the Panthers. I think they've got some young, really good talent, but the quarterback is just not there right now. I am not a big fan of Robert Saleh, and I do not like this coaching staff very much. I think the decision to go with their new offensive coordinator, Hackett, is a complete miss. He's a terrible coach. I think he was terrible in Denver, and he'll be terrible with the Jets. I just don't see Rodgers going there. I can't see Rodgers wanting to go with this absolute joke of a coaching staff. Robert Saleh, I think, is overrated. The defense is very talented, don't get me wrong, and they're going to keep them in a lot of games. Sauce Gardner's an absolute stud. Their D-line is very good, and their offense has talent. Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Elijah Moore even. They've got talent, but I just don't think they have a quarterback. So I think the Jets are going to be a mid-team next year. Next, we've got the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens hired Todd Monken of Georgia. Ultra's buddy, Todd Monken. He was formerly the offensive coordinator of the Bucs when they were lighting up the skies with Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick. And he was also a big key piece to the Cleveland Browns making the playoffs a couple years ago, or at least getting the most out of Baker Mayfield, I will say. I do think that the Baltimore Ravens offense is going to be much better in the passing game, but they do need to get a better receiver. Rashad Bateman, he got hurt last year. Big key piece back. Lamar Jackson will be re-signed. The offensive line is pretty darn good already. The running backs are good. J.K. Dobbins leading the way. Gus Edwards, they're signed. They're good to go. Mark Andrews, I think will be great again next year. They need another receiver. That's what they need. Defensively, they're very good. They're very good on defense. Maybe they're a little bit old on their D-line, but I think they could, add some youth to that position. I think this team is a contender. I don't think they're just a dark horse team. I think the Baltimore Ravens are a contender. I think with Lamar Jackson healthy and another receiver, I think the Baltimore Ravens are going to be a very good team because I think the offensive coordinator position is going to be better. And I think the defense is going to be elite. So I'm going to put the Ravens in contender. Remember, this team almost beat the Bengals with Tyler Huntley, and they only lost because of the fumble that went 99 yards. Remember that for a second. Cincinnati Bengals. Speaking of the Devils there, we got the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati. We will see what they do with T. Higgins. It's the biggest question they got this offseason. They've got to decide what the future holds for Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins moving forward. The offensive line is going to be healthy. That's going to be big. And another year of continuity will be big. Do they look to improve that position once again? Running back, Joe Mixon's in a little bit of trouble, but I could see them moving forward with some youth at that position. Defensively, I think they could improve their corner position. Chidobe Awuzie will be back, I believe. I think they could add another young player to corner, but they've got good linebackers, good defensive front, and everyone's basically in their prime, which is very, very nice. Jesse Bates, they also have to decide on him. But I think the Bengals are going to be very good. They've got one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the game. They've got one of the best offenses in the game. They're a contender, without a doubt. It's not even a discussion. Cleveland Browns. Cleveland. They're like the trickiest team in the NFL because they've got a guy named Deshaun Watson, and he did not look good at all last year, but he was a very good football player like 3 years ago. So the question is, can Deshaun Watson with a full offseason of work, mini camp, training camp, how much is his personal life a distraction for him moving forward in the NFL? The offensive line is really good. The run game is really good. Kevin Stefanski, to me, is, probably under a little bit of heat and pressure right now. Defensively, they need to improve from a scheme standpoint. I think they could with a new defensive coach there. Myles Garrett's a stud. Denzel Ward is a stud. They've got some good players, but they still have a lot of holes on defense. They've got to fix and tweak. Defensive line in the interior is a big one. Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones is a nice little combo of receivers. David Njoku had a really nice season last year. They've got a lot of talent, but they have for the last 4 years. I think they're anywhere between dark horse and intriguing mess, depending on how well Deshaun Watson plays. But I'm going to put them in the mid, somewhere in the middle. Okay. Then we've got the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I think a lot of Steelers fans are very excited for what the future could hold for this team. Mike Tomlin is an excellent coach and always seems to have a winning record, or at least close to it. Kenny Pickett was promising as a rookie. I don't think he was as good as like Mac Jones was as a rookie, or Justin Herbert was as a rookie, or Dak Prescott or anybody like that. But he was pretty good. Like, he showed enough signs that he was better than a Trevor Lawrence. He was better than a, Justin Fields, any of those guys. So that's nice. Offensive line could use some work. Receivers are, I think, okay. Like, Deontay Johnson is good. He's not great. Maybe he's gone this offseason. I don't know. I feel like Pickens is a bit overrated because all he does is catch contested footballs. Good tight end position, solid running backs. Defense is talented. They lost Flores, but it's not a huge loss. I mean, they didn't have him 2 years ago. TJ Watt's still there. How long can Cameron Hayward play at an elite level? Secondary could use improvement. Minkah Fitzpatrick's a stud. They've got good things all over their roster, but I still feel like their potential, or like their promise of what people think they could be, I think is a little bit ahead of where I think they realistically are. So I think they're like a mid team, honestly. I think they're average. I think they benefited from the Browns being a mess this year. They benefited from Lamar Jackson being hurt. I think they're going to win 8 to 10 games next year, but it's like it could go either way. There's going to be a lot of close games that they're in. The Houston Texans, they stink. I don't even need to talk about that one. D'Amico Ryans, he's got a lot of work ahead of him. This is still rebuild. They need a quarterback. They'll probably get a young one in the draft. They need a lot of talent at wide receiver, at tight end, skill positions. But defensively, D'Amico Ryans should be an instant upgrade from day one, I would say. And from just a personality leadership standpoint, he should be bringing some flavor to them. So those are my tiers entering 2023 and the 2023 NFL offseason, guys. The lone favorite is the Kansas City Chiefs. I did not see another team that I could put on that same tier. Maybe you put Philadelphia there. Maybe you put Cincinnati there. But I don't really see another team. I think the clear favorite is the Chiefs. After that, you've got a bunch of teams that will be in contention. Teams like the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Bills, the Niners. By the way, this is in order. The Ravens and the Bengals. After that, you got dark horses like the Jacksonville Jags, the LA Chargers, the Detroit Lions, the Packers, the Dolphins, the Seahawks, the Patriots. The mid teams, the average. You got the Titans, the Giants, the Vikings, the Panthers, the Rams, the Jets, the Browns, and the Steelers. The intriguing messes of the league. The better than bad, but like they could be bad too. The Broncos, the Raiders, the Commanders, the Saints, and the Bucks. And the teams that I'm pretty certain will still be bad. The Colts, the Bears, the Falcons, the Cardinals, and the Texans. If I were to say one team from that bottom tier that I think could really improve depending on what they do, I would say it's the Falcons have the division to do it. The Bears have the quarterback maybe. And the Colts have the roster. Okay, so those are my tiers entering the off season. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to spike the like button and subscribe for more NFL tiers just like this for the rest of the off season. Also, let me know in the comment section below your rankings, your tiers for the NFL, and also any tiers that you would like to see me create for the NFL this offseason. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's Mitch. Appreciate ya. We will see you soon. More live content coming this offseason, guys. I realize I need to be doing it more often, so I'm going to be doing live content all offseason long. Thanks for watching. It's Mitch. Peace.